Hello and welcome back to the She is Courageous podcast. Right, you know that thing that you keep putting off because it feels really scary? I want you to ask yourself today, when is enough enough? Like when are you going to do it? Whatever's coming up for you right now, when I ask that question, what are you putting off because it just feels too scary? When are you going to do it? What's really stopping you? Because here's the real question of today. Is it getting any easier waiting? Is it feeling less scary by waiting? Or is it actually getting worse in your mind? I want to tell you today about the 5 months, yes, 5 months that I avoided driving here in Dubai. So as many of you know, I live here with my husband in Dubai and we love it, okay? I moved here in the summer of 2023. I moved in August, so it was very hot and I basically didn't leave the house for the first 3-4 weeks of living here. But then I started leaving the house and I knew at some point I would need to drive a car over here. But I avoided it and I kept avoiding it. And it was 5 months, 5 whole months before I finally got behind the wheel of the car. And actually it was because frustration finally won over the fear. So I do want you to think today about if you're holding back from doing something because of fear, self-doubt. Because if you are, I really hope that me giving you a little bit of insight into this one example, and I could give you hundreds, but I'm going to use this one. I really think this one will hit home for you. So as I said, I've been living here in Dubai now for 18 months. And these days, I drive not everywhere, and there's a practical reason for that, but I do drive without really thinking about it. If I'm going somewhere I don't know, the only real thought process I have is, can I find it on Waze, the God Saviour app? And probably the only other thing that gets on my mind is, what will parking be like when I get there? Because parking in Dubai can be a challenge. But it took me 5 months to get behind the wheel of a car in this country. And I had all of the excuses. Taxis are cheap. So I just told myself, it's fine, taxis are cheap. I don't need to worry about another car. In fact, I'm not going to buy another car. So it's fine. I'll just keep getting taxis because they're really cheap. My husband drove everywhere. He's not the best passenger, quite frankly. So I just said, well, you know, when we go out anywhere, if I'm not getting a taxi, I'm with him so he can drive. But there was really a key to this, and that is, and not helped by the narrative around us, the roads here are insane. Okay, the road network are insane. If you've ever seen the aerial views online, there are a lot of roads with a lot of lanes. But the truth is, none of that really matters. I was scared. I was terrified of driving over here. And the longer I put it off, the worse it got. Until one day, I just decided something had to shift. And that's what we're going to talk about today. I want you to think about what needs to shift. Because this is all about, okay, She is Courageous podcast. This is all about the power of our mindset, particularly when it comes to fear, avoidance, and then finally taking action. Because that was what I was in. I was in a mindset of fear, which led to a mindset of avoidance until I finally did something about it. But I had to go through that process. So let's just take it back. I moved here in August 2023. Now, there's a whole backstory to that. I'm not going to bore you with that today. But I was so excited to be moving here. There's a bit of a finally. We were doing this. We were so ready for the adventure we were about to start. And I wasn't nervous about moving to a new country. I wasn't nervous about meeting friends. But I was absolutely terrified about driving. And like I said, it's not kind of helped by the fact that everyone talks about driving here, okay? So there's the obvious fact that we drive on the other side of the road. So we drive on the other side of the road. The wheel of the car is, of course, on the other side. And that's, you know, that's obvious stuff, right? But the truth is, I've barely driven abroad. I have been driving for, well, I'm going to show my age now, like 20 odd years, okay? More than that. Yeah, more than that. But anyway, I've been driving for a long time. And I have driven the length and breadth of the UK. I am a confident driver. I will go pretty much anywhere. So driving doesn't bother me, but driving in another country has always been something I felt nervous about. So that was the first bit. So I layered that in first and foremost. There is then, of course, the small matter of, and I want to be polite, but how people drive here. Now, we have a lot of people from a lot of different countries that drive the way that they have learnt to drive. So to say that there is a very large mix of how people drive here would be an understatement. And calm, orderly would not be words I would use for any of the driving here. There is a real kind of attitude you have to have on the roads. So I totally avoided it. Why would I put more pressure on myself? I didn't need to worry about that at first. And like I said, it was really easy. Taxis are cheap, they're very reliable, they're very easy to get hold of. Even though I don't live in the main city, I can get a taxi to my house in less than a minute, okay? Way less stressful than thinking about driving. So I was easing in, I was getting to know my way around. I just thought, look, I'll just deal with taxis. And the truth is we only have one car because I work from home. My husband drives to work every single day. And as I've already said, he doesn't listen to the podcast, so we can say this. He's a terrible passenger. So why would I put myself through it? I just let him drive everywhere. And I convinced myself it was absolutely fine. I absolutely convinced myself because I needed to. Because deep down, I was fearful, absolutely terrified. And so it was easier to avoid that fear by convincing myself that everything was absolutely fine. Taxis are easy. Guy does all the driving. I don't need a car. It's all good. Now, we started to talk. So I moved here in August, September, October, November. And we started to talk about what I needed to do to be able to drive here. And it's not like it's difficult either. Okay, so it's not a difficult process to be able to drive here. On my British driving license, all I needed to do was get an eye test, transfer my license and pay a little bit of money. Good, job done. It's not like I didn't even have to take a test, okay? But I did need to get this eye test. So you'd have thought, right, okay, we start having this conversation, I'm settled, I just book the eye test and get it done. Now, I'm going to use my inverted commas with my fingers, if you watch me on YouTube. I literally forgot to take my glasses with me. Must have been 5 or 6 times. When we went to the mall, because you can just walk in and get these eyesight tests as well. You don't really even need to book. Okay, so I didn't book it, but you can, in this country, walk into most things like that. So you can walk into the opticians, even if you've got to wait 15, 20 minutes. But I kept forgetting to take my glasses with me. Classic avoidance. So time kept going, and then I started to have conversations with my husband around the inconvenience of not having a car. And he just kept saying, well, get it sorted. It's fine. We can work this out. Like, we can either talk about getting a second car, but there's ways we can use the car together. I don't have to have the car all day, every single day. So he was absolutely there supporting me making this happen. But I kept, no, it'd be fine. But I need to get the eye test done and I haven't had a chance to do that yet. Avoidance, excuse. And the longer I did it, the worse in my mind it got. And then when I finally got my eyesight test, and all I needed to do was get my driving license switched over, and then I had to physically go to an office to get this done. I swear that week, I saw 3 accidents on the road. And so I literally was like, that's it, it's a sign. I should not drive here. And I totally over-dramatised these accidents. They were, I'm pleased to say they weren't terrible accidents. And things like that do happen because, some of the driving is a little bit suspect sometimes, but actually everyone has to take responsibility for themselves. I should point out, my husband hasn't had an accident in our time here. Neither have I, 18 months later. She says, do not jinx it, Shelley. But the point was, there I was, so my brain had shifted. I'd now started to focus on, okay, I'm removing the excuses. I'm going to have to do this. Oh my God, this is terrifying. So all I was really thinking about was the fear. And so what did I do? I saw examples of accidents. I saw actual accidents on the road. But then something shifted. And I will thank my husband for having a part to play in this, because I was talking more and more about how I was feeling like I didn't have as much independence here. We live a bit further out of the city, so sometimes I can feel quite isolated out here. These are all feelings. I can feel isolated. I can feel like I don't have as much independence. But ultimately, they come from my thoughts, and they are also a direct result of my actions. But this went on, 5 months. I was actually so frustrated at myself because, quite rightly, as my husband said, but I was also saying to myself, the only person that could change this was me. I was frustrated, not with Dubai's roads, not with the other drivers, not with my husband, but with myself, because actually I gave away my independence. I was giving up on me, and I had no one to blame but me. The only person that could do anything about this was me. It all relied on me taking a different action. So I needed to change my thought process. I needed to think differently. I needed to remember, actually, I'm a really good driver. Actually, I've driven the length and breadth of the UK to places I've never been before. My accident rate is very low in ratio to the number of years I've been driving. I needed to remind myself of the truth, and that was that I would be okay. That it would all be okay. That I am a good driver, a safe driver, and whilst I might be nervous, I'm not going to have a load of accidents. I'm not going to have an accident the minute I step into the car. I needed to take back control of the mindset of fear that was seeing all the reasons I shouldn't drive. So it did take me I nearly said 5 years. It did take me 5 months, but I got it sorted and I got in the car. And the first time I drove with my husband beside me. I'll be honest, that was not a good idea. I was concentrating like I haven't concentrated. It was so hard. I mean, harder than I think I've concentrated in years. I was gripping the wheel like vice-like. My hands were in the 10-2 position, people. It was like I was taking my driving test all over again. Every turn, every roundabout, like I could feel the nervousness, almost like the heat rising in me, the fear. But I did it. And the next time, I actually told my husband I need to go out and drive on my own because I knew I couldn't rely on him always being there. And that's not about I couldn't rely on him, but I couldn't have that as, well, I'm okay to drive as long as Guy's next to me. What's the point? I needed this for independence. So then I took myself off to the supermarket. I drove all the way to the supermarket, which, by the way, is not just a 5-minute drive. Drove all the way to the supermarket on the Sheikh Zayed Road, which is like a 6, 7, 8 lane road. And then I drove somewhere else. And the more I did it, the easier it got. And now I barely think about it. That's how quickly we can change our mindset. So I guess I just wanted to use that really simple example. First of all, to anybody that's listening to today's podcast, if you are new to Dubai, if you have been here a while maybe, and you have not yet driven, it's not going to get easier and you can do this. But here are the real lessons. Fear thrives on avoidance. The longer we avoid, the longer we put something off, the bigger and scarier it feels because we are playing to our fear's benefit. I don't know if that's the right words, but we're playing to the fear. We're showing the fear all the reasons to be fearful. But also, frustration at oneself can be really powerfully motivating because sometimes we don't change until we actually get fed up with our own excuses. No one else could make me do this. No one else can change my mindset. I had to. And I had to be actually, in this instance, so fed up with my own excuses. And the desire for the opposite of what I had to be stronger. And the desire for my independence and the desire to overcome that fear became stronger than the fear itself. Now, I talk about it all the time, okay? This is the She is Courageous podcast. And the very, very first episode of this podcast was why I choose courage over confidence. This was about courage because action builds confidence, not the other way around. I was never going to feel confident to drive in Dubai. What I needed to do was be courageous. I needed to do it scared. I needed to do it even though the fear was there because that then has built my confidence because now I've shown myself that I can do this. And guess what? Last year, I went to Italy for one of my international retreats and I drove in Italy alone. I've never driven in Italy alone because when I go to Italy, I go with my husband and guess what? He drives. And it wasn't scary. It was a little bit nervy because I didn't know where I was going, but I didn't feel scared. I didn't feel that I couldn't do it. So I guess my question to you today is, what are you avoiding? What's your Dubai driving? What's the thing that you keep finding excuses for? Because I want you to think about what you're putting off. The thing that you know you could be doing, you want to do, but you keep finding reasons not to. And I just want you to take one small step towards it and keep going. Book the appointment, make the call, put the live out, put the video out, put the offer out, do the thing. You will not regret it. And it will only get easier. Now, of course, if you need a little bit of help with this, if you have got something that you are avoiding, that you really want to courageously step forward to, I can help you. We can help you in the She is Courageous Collective community. It is the perfect way for you to connect with a fab community of like-minded women who are courageously stepping towards their goals, to get a little shot of Shelley and my coaching, and of course, to move forward courageously for you. With weekly live sessions for goal setting, drop-in coaching clinics and mindset masterclasses at $47 a month. This is the most cost-effective way for you to work on you with my help. It is a safe space for you to truly upgrade your mindset, and I assure you that it will. You can message me for more details or head to the link in the show notes and come join us. Stop putting it off. Let's get courageous. Let's make things happen together. Thanks again for listening. And as always, she is courageous and she is you.